Hi, I'm Natalie, and this is my reflection video from our ropes course weekend. Gosh, like a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Um, I was like kind of nervous about recording this just because it's like the second time I've ever actually had to turn in a video like recording of myself, and like the first time was a week ago, and that was really weird to do too. And I don't know, I was like trying to make it exciting for everybody, and so I figured like conversation's always good. So this is my kind of like conversation sort of setup. Anyway, so yeah, the facts about that weekend where we did ropes course, and we did both individual and team building courses, like types courses. Super fun, and we spent time after every course evaluating kind of what we did, and yeah, like kind of what our group did, and then Paul took a step back and kind of evaluated what he was kind of doing while like being in charge and delegating and whatnot, which was really interesting as the behind the scenes as the like leader for that. Some of my feelings from the event were uncomfortable. I definitely felt uncomfortable during some of the courses, like the human knot that we did. That wasn't actually like a course event, but I was just like a little bit like, I've done that like a billion times, but for some reason, I don't know, like maybe it was the like context of being very aware of how, like, we were supposed to be very aware of how we were feeling, and I was very aware that I was like, being touched in so many different places, and I was like, and I kind of like to make jokes of things, and so I was like, oh, like, this is like, I like to, make jokes of my own like issues, or like my own like misfortune, I guess. I don't know. So I mean, it was kind of funny, but yeah, that, and then the walking on the like high log was a little bit uncomfortable, and the vertical spider web, where we had to like go through without touching anything, and so you're depending on a lot of people for that. I also, some finding or feelings that I had was, I don't think I was worried about my physical like performance as I was about like the self-conscious piece of like worrying or overthinking kind of things. Like I think I knew like physically, yeah, I can do everything, I'll be safe, like you know what I mean, like I wasn't too concerned about that, because I like that kind of adrenaline stuff, and so it was interesting to see how much more I'm held back like subconsciously than I am physically, and that's kind of lame to think about, because I feel like I could do so much if I would just get my mind there, but I almost think that like you can train your body, and I feel like that's like, it's like kind of like a formula, like, okay, you eat healthy, you work out, so times a week, whatever, like, and you become strong. But mentally, that's like a completely different kind of exercise and training, and I don't know, that'd be really interesting to do like mental exercises. Look that up, I don't know. Yeah, I also had I struggled, yeah, with that log in the air one specifically. Not necessarily like the task of doing it. I mean, yeah, it was definitely scary once I got up there. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect to be this high up. It doesn't look this high up. But yeah, some of the things that Paul was asking me while I was up there in such a vulnerable position, everybody's looking at me. I was like, I don't even know how to answer some of these things. So that was definitely uncomfortable, and I got emotional through that for sure. And something, a positive note, I felt super encouraged when Bethany and I kind of like pioneered the group like through that like wire like spiderweb ropes course thing that we like were walking on. That was really, really actually very exciting. and encouraging, and it just felt really good. And so yeah, and then I also felt really passionate about some of the like rehabilitation stories that you guys were sharing, like gosh, this is so bad, I can't remember her name, the other lady who was kind of facilitating with Paul. That was really cool to hear some of the stories. I think that's definitely something I'm passionate about. So that was really cool. And some of my findings from those feelings that I felt, you have to kind of backtrack now, I guess. So with the high up log one, I went home and I kind of talked to my mom a little bit about it, and I was like, yeah, like it was really good. Like I wasn't expecting it to be very this like emotional and deep and whatnot, but so I was sharing with her some of the things that, you know, Paul was asking me on that log, and some of my answers and how I couldn't really answer a lot of them. And to recap, it was about like painting and why I don't sell my art and why I don't believe that I can do certain things, I guess. That was like an extreme summarizing. But I told her that story, and she was like, can I share something with you? And I'm thinking, oh great, like she's gonna point out something, you know what I mean? And like, you know, defend herself or whatever. And she was like, I think a lot of times you like give up on yourself too easily. And I kind of had to think about that for a little while, because I wasn't sure if I really believed her at first. I was like, I don't know. But looking back on a lot of things that I've done and stopped doing, a lot of times, not necessarily when they get too hard for me personally, but when I don't have the support or the like, I guess, yeah, support is the best word, or acceptance of the and adjusting that dependence on other people's opinions, because I know ultimately it doesn't matter, but you know, your brain is just so wired, I think, to believe that it does. Yeah, so there's that. And what else? I think kind of going back to the how I feel like physically, physically I trust myself, but not mentally I don't trust myself, you know. It'd be interesting to kind of go over where I lack mental strength. Sounds so weird saying that, but I mean, that'd be really interesting to do. And I probably should do it, honestly. I also like think that the fact that I was so influenced by the rehabilitation and just the ropes course, like therapy in a way, was really cool. I think it's just I have such a passion for women and women who have been hurt, really, and it's just been really, it's a close thing to my heart. And so I think that is cool that I was able to experience something that I would have never thought of as being potentially an option for my like career, you know, like, because now I'm like, oh, like I could see myself doing something like that. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like not like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do now, like I've decided my calling, you know. But I think it's cool to have that that option in mind, because yeah, I would have never gone to a ropes course like voluntarily. Like, that's just not where my mind would have gone. But yeah, I like learned a lot from that, and I appreciate Paul going and telling us kind of what he was doing as leader and like facilitating, because now I'm like all inspired, like, oh, I could take my girls there and like my middle school girls, and they would love this, and I could, you know, work on helping them with their self-confidence or whatever it is, you know, or, you know, working together, teamwork, whatever. Yeah, and so I think all throughout it, I was able to gain a lot of perspective on things that I want to improve in myself, which I mentioned before, and yeah, just I think becoming aware of things is the first, obviously, is the first step, and I think it's probably the hardest step, I think, because, you know, it's hard for that glass to shatter, you know, to be able to finally see what, you know, you kind of overlook, and yeah, so I'm glad that some of those things were brought to the surface, and I can work on them, and I can grow from that, and I think I have already grown from that, so that's really good. And yeah, I don't know if I did this right or wrong, or I don't know if it really matters, but those were my answers, that was my findings and my reflections from that weekend, and yeah, see you guys in October.